Hello there boys and girls, Adam Nicholas here for What Culture Wrestling, and normally at this time of the day, or certainly for the last few weeks, I'd be bringing you the latest installment from The Undertaker's The Last Ride series. Isn't it weird how WWE is sometimes, because not The Last Ride this time, but it is The Lost Tape, and it's by Sting. One of the most random drops on the WWE network in quite some time. Yes, much like the lost footage of Bret Hart and Tom McGee, we have now found some lost footage of Sting from 1995 in the build-up towards his match against Big Bubba Rogers at Slamboree 1995. Well, if you're a fan of WWE's The Day Of or 24 series that they do on the network, then this is definitely for you. Imagine that, but in 1995, well before any of that stuff is being done, and WCW are kind of being innovators here, and they just end up not doing anything with this footage for 25 years apparently. Doesn't that sound very on brand? But maybe you are busy and maybe you don't have time for all this stuff that WWE keeps dropping on the network, so that's why I'm here to watch it so you don't have to. And to be honest, as random as this is, it kind of fits Sting's MO, doesn't it? Because he always said the one thing for sure about Sting is that nothing is for sure, and I can guarantee you I for sure wasn't expecting to do a video about Sting today. Anyway, my name is Adam Nicholas, this is What Culture Wrestling, and these are the 8 things we learned from WWE's Sting The Lost Tape. Number 8, it's a fascinating hidden gem for WCW fans. Now, we're kind of used to seeing WWE do all these behind the scenes documentaries, but this is 1995. This is a time when kayfabe is still being pretty much guarded, so to see Sting floating around backstage and talking to the likes of Macho Man Randy Savage, Marcus Bagwell, or Buff Bagwell as he becomes, and Terry Taylor is fascinating, because these guys, they literally don't know what to do when the camera's being pointed in front of their face. Some of them even go into promo mode because they're that used to it, which is so weird to see. This is something that wasn't happening regularly, and the guys, when the camera's pointed in their face, can sometimes turn a bit weird. And this is probably summed up best when Marcus Bagwell comes on camera and Sting is there. He sees the Stinger, he sees the camera, and just assumes that he needs to start cutting a promo about how Sting's going to win his match against Big Bubba Rogers and how he's got his back and how Sting's always had his back, before Sting kind of says, hey man, it's a shoot, it's a shizoot. But Bagwell doesn't get the hint and carries on trying to do a promo. It's weird, it's wonderful, and it goes to show you just how not normal this would have been back then. Number 7, it would have been ahead of its time. We've seen how much success WWE's had with their series in The Day Of and WWE 24. These are things that bring you the behind the scenes stuff that fans are absolutely desperate for these days. Back then, in 1995, this wasn't necessarily what fans wanted, but WCW were tapping into it even then. I mean, you've got to remember, this is 25 years ago. This stuff wasn't happening, so there was no blueprint for it. Sting and a cameraman have been told to go and film some stuff, so off they go and they try and come up with some interesting and innovative stuff, and they kind of do, but obviously it wasn't enough for WCW to think it was good, because they've just put it away in a dusty old cupboard for 25 years. But there really is some great time capsule-esque stuff on here. Sting preparing for an interview with Mean Gene Okerlund. We see him like off camera, obviously with another camera filming him, and he's just trying to psych himself up and get ready for this promo before coming across like the most confident man in the world. You see the same thing before he goes out of the ring. These are things that we take for granted these days, but this was unheard of back then. Number 6, the actual match is worth watching. Now, the first 14 minutes of this documentary are all the behind the scenes footage and stuff, but then from that point onwards, we get the full match at Slamboree 95 between Big Bubba Rogers and Sting. Now, we've seen this same format used in the Bret Hart and Tom McGee documentary that came out earlier on the WWE network, and it's a good formula. It gives you the context to go with everything you're seeing in terms of the documentary footage. Now, you might be a little bit like me. You might look at the older wrestling matches and think, oh, should I watch these? Because is it going to make me think less about that time period because I've seen so much nowadays? Well, yes, you should watch it. You should give it your time of day, because it really does add to everything. We see the build up to it. You might as well watch the match as well. And to be honest, it's fascinating seeing how different things are back then. The main notable difference being how they use a table in this match. Normally, you'd expect to see someone going through that. We don't actually get that in this match, but they do loads of moves on top of it, still doing bumps, and off it, using the opponents to hit off it, but not actually going through it. And that's pretty different compared to how it is now. Number 5, he didn't view himself as a superstar. Now, as the documentary opens, we see Sting applying his trademark face paint, and he's talking to the camera while he's doing it in the mirror, and he basically says that he doesn't see himself as a superstar. Despite at this point he's been going for 8 years and he's built up such a mass following in WCW, things are going pretty well. He's a top guy pretty much at this point, and he says he's still that same Sting from 8 years ago. Now, yes, part of this is probably some good babyface work, but also it's kind of like the real Steve Borden shining through, because if anybody who's seen the other documentaries WWE have done on Sting, there was a recent one when he was coming back for that WrestleMania 31 match, This is a guy who's very humble. This is a guy who doesn't let the business make his head inflate huge. And if anything, this is a guy who genuinely cares about what he's doing. And you see as much in this documentary. He spends ages backstage high-fiving fans, just kind of taking it in, getting eye contact with people, making them feel like they've had a real moment. And he even goes as far to talk about how he still gets nervous before his matches. Every match he has, and he says he still gets those butterflies. After all those years and all the way he could have let things go to his head, he seems like he still has a pretty good handle on things. Number 4, why Sting's face paint was always different. Now, if you've ever wondered why this era Sting always had a different kind of face paint on, whether it was a different pattern or a different colour, well, the Lost Tape has some answers for you. And the short version of those answers is that he says he just has no idea what he's doing when it comes to the face paint, and he just lets the brush strokes happen and he just kind of goes with the flow, because ultimately he's going to have to do this every single night. Yes, there are templates when it comes to the kind of colours that he uses, and he also mentions that he kind of listens out to the ones that the fans really enjoy and tries to move towards them, but ultimately this is a form of expression for him, a creative expression that he gets to do on a nightly basis. So instead of obsessing about making it perfect and the same every night, he just tries to do something different. Number 3, Sting really believed in WCW's future. Well, we've already talked about how humble Sting clearly is from all of this. That is really hammered home when he's talking about WCW, the brand itself, and how much he believes in the company. You've heard tales in the past about how when the WWF stars jumped across to WCW, like Hogan and like Savage, a lot of people got disgruntled and a lot of people weren't happy. Sting wasn't one of them. Sting says that's part of the deal, but also says as much as these guys are professionals and have come into the company, he's still excited about the future that's going on within WCW already. We've got the likes of Johnny B. Bad, we've got the likes of Marcus Bagwell, and we've got Alex Wright. 3 guys who Sting feels could be the future. Now, we've got to take it easy on the guy here, because this was 1995. He didn't know how things were going to work out. He was just saying it how he thought. And the guys he named might not have gone on to change the business in a dramatic way. Alex Wright ended up being a lower mid-card guy for WCW. Johnny B. Bad ended up leaving to go to WWE and obviously become Mark Mero. And Marcus Bagwell, out of the 3 guys, was probably the one who had the most success, although saying that, we all remember how Buff Bagwell ended up. Still though, it is a good insight into how much stock in the company Sting felt there was. Yes, alright, maybe people didn't know the difference between a promo and a shizoot, but still, he was trying. Number 2, Sting was Vader's favourite opponent. We get a bunch of talking heads discussing Sting and the kind of guy that he is before his match at Slamboree 1995, and one of those talking heads just so happens to be Vader. We get an attempt by Vader to kind of tie the events of Slamboree 1994 into the build towards Slamboree 1995. For those who don't know, Vader and Sting had a match at Slamboree 94, which Vader himself says is one of his favourite matches ever, as well as he goes on to say that Sting was one of his most favourite opponents. Now, he didn't actually look that comfortable talking to camera, but maybe that had something to do with the fact that Vader didn't have his trademark mask on, which again is weird enough to see in 1995. Never mind Vader just getting on camera and talking slightly out of kayfabe, but still, it goes to say a lot about Sting that despite the fact that Vader had wrestled people like Ric Flair, Stan Hansen and Mick Foley to this point, that he was the name that he said he wanted and loved the most to wrestle with at the very, very top. That's some hellish praise, really. And number 1, hearing Randy Savage's real voice is weird. And of all the things you probably thought were going to be number 1 on this list, I bet you didn't think it was going to be something about the Macho Man Randy Savage, did you? But yes, early on as Sting is backstage looking around and talking to his fellow WCW wrestlers, we bump into the Macho Man Randy Savage, who comes on camera to talk with his good pal Sting. And what you'll immediately notice is that he's not doing the trademark Macho Man voice. Loads of husk and loads of gravel in his throat. This is a guy just talking normally, and it's proper weird, to be honest. It's like the two of them are talking about the fact that Macho Man actually owes Sting some money from a game of gin they played. You can tell there's obviously a good friendship here. These two have got such a great rapport. But we get this behind the scenes look again. We've seen Vader without the mask. Now we're hearing Macho Man without the voice. I mean, who can imagine an interview with Macho Man Randy Savage around about this time without an "oh yeah" or a "dig it"? One of the two's got to come in there somewhere, and yet we just get a man who has toned down the showbiz and is just talking like a normal person. This is really cool to see, albeit very weird. So there you have it. Those are all the things we learned from Sting's The Lost Tape documentary on the WWE Network. Let us know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and share. Hit the old subscribe button if you haven't already. You can find the original articles for this at whatculture.com/WWE. You can follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, or you can follow me on Twitter if that's your thing at It's Adam Nicholas. Or maybe if you just want some more videos, you can find them just here. I've been Adam Nicholas, this has been What Culture, and I'll see you next time.